maximize the purchase of buying a new phone, still having something fairly new, but reducing that depreciation effect that really happens. So let's take a look on screen here. Well, if we take a look at the overall depreciation process when you're buying a brand new phone, and let's just say that this is the time and age of that new phone, it could be a new device, a laptop, versus the value or the cost. Typically what happens is with time, you start to lose value in that item, okay? And eventually you get to this leveling off stage where you just don't lose that much value within that time frame. Okay, so this is our kind of depreciation line. Now this happens with your current phone that you may have, or the current phone that you have right now in your hand that you're using. And then it also happens with the new phones that are also coming out. So how is it that you maximize this? Well, what you try to do is you go ahead and get something that's just slightly older. Okay, now the sweet spot could be a little bit differently depending on various tech. For certain devices, it could be after 3 months depending on the cycle. Okay, so let's just say if you're looking at phones, it might be, 9 months later. Okay, so let's just say this is a cell phone. For computers and devices, it could be about a year later. So let's just say this is maybe a laptop. But keep in mind the longevity, right? How long do you use a cell phone? It's typically shorter, and you continue to exchange them simply because the software gets bulkier. With laptops, you hold on to them a little bit longer. So you're looking at the time frame, and what you want to do is kind of get that purchase in the sweet spot or the sweet zone to where you still are able to use it, okay, for a longer period of time, right? So if I purchase something, let's just say 6 months after it's released, I could still use it for a handful of 12 more months, a year and a half, and then what I do is I get rid of that phone or get rid of it somewhere around this area, 18, 21 months of that life cycle, and continue this process again. This allows me to somewhat keep up with technology and still sell one of my old phones. Because once you get to a certain time frame, this depreciation, in fact, continues to go lower and lower and eventually just dies out. So when you look at the CRT, the big, fat, old monitors that we used to have, those things, for a while you could still sell them and still make some money. But eventually when LCDs or the thin displays started to hit the markets, these also were depreciating. But then once the LCDs came out, you still probably could sell those big fat monitors, but I remember a buddy of mine actually just threw those out. He couldn't even give them away. So there was a point, and then all of a sudden they just dropped, and then they were garbage after that. So there's that point that you don't want to miss that window where you're just at a total loss, and that's what you want to really avoid. So if you're still looking to get something back from your tech, from your cell phones, don't miss that window. But if you get in there like 6 months later, 9 months later, after something is released, even though they're making announcements that they're going to have the next version coming up, then what you do is you get in right there, you still have that time frame or that window for another year, year and a half, and then after that, when they release or talk about the next one, you get out of it, sell that one, and continue this process time and time again. So that way you can still get something for your old cell phone or your old tech, but in the meantime, you also don't have to deal with this either depreciation factor, or you could go ahead and even get something more used if you're okay with that, because if it's still in good shape, it allows you to maybe not save half of that value, not 300, but you might be able to knock off 100 or 200 or 10 or 15% off of that value, and at least keep a little more money in your pocket. So thanks again for joining me in this week's video. I hope you found it helpful. If you want to go ahead and sign up to my newsletter list, so that way you get news and announcements when I release new videos or even some new products and insights about saving money, about how to maximize your returns, or even building a profitable business, go ahead, click this link.